Philadelphia experiment opened dimensional portal. October 28, 1943, the USS Eldridge disappeared from Philadelphia Naval Shipyard in a flash of green light. It reappeared 200 miles away in Norfolk, Virginia, then vanished again, returning to Philadelphia minutes later. But the ship that came back wasn't the same, and the sailors aboard were no longer entirely human. What you're about to discover has been classified beyond top secret for 80 years. Declassified documents, survivor testimonies that were suppressed until death, and evidence that proves the U.S. Navy didn't just achieve invisibility, they tore open a doorway to another dimension, unleashing horrors that military scientists are still trying to contain. This wasn't a failed experiment. It succeeded beyond imagination. And that's exactly why it's been buried, denied, and covered up by every government agency that knows the truth. The Philadelphia experiment proved that reality is far more terrifying than anyone dared to imagine. Prepare to learn why this technology was immediately shut down, why survivors were institutionalized and silenced, and why recent evidence suggests the portal they opened in 1943 has never fully closed. The official story claims the Philadelphia experiment never happened. Naval records were lost, witnesses were discredited, survivors were declared insane. But classified documents obtained through the Freedom of Information Act requests tell a very different story. Project Rainbow, the code name for the Philadelphia experiment, was designed to make ships invisible to enemy radar using electromagnetic field generators based on unified field theory. Nikola Tesla had designed the original specifications before his mysterious death in January 1943, 9 months before the experiment. His notes warned of catastrophic consequences if the fields were too powerful. They ignored his warnings. At 9 a.m. on October 28, 1943, massive generators surrounding the USS Eldridge activated. Witnesses on nearby ships reported seeing a greenish fog envelop the destroyer. The air itself seemed to ripple and distort. Then, in a blinding flash, the entire 306-foot warship vanished completely. What happened next defies the laws of physics as we understand them. The USS Eldridge materialized in Norfolk, Virginia, 200 miles away, was witnessed by multiple Navy personnel for several minutes, then disappeared again. When it returned to Philadelphia 15 minutes later, the ship was on fire, and the crew was screaming. 5 sailors were found embedded in the steel structure of the ship itself, their bodies molecularly fused with the metal. They were still alive, still conscious, still screaming. Others had vanished completely, never to be found. Some were found on fire, their bodies burning from the inside out, despite no external flame source. But the most disturbing discovery was the sailors who remained physically intact. They described experiencing something impossible. They had seen through the barrier between dimensions, and something had seen them back. Are you starting to understand the magnitude of what was unleashed? Drop a comment if you've heard whispers of this before, because what's coming next will blow your mind even further. Make sure you're subscribed. This channel reveals truths that get censored everywhere else. Carlos Allende, a merchant seaman aboard the SS Andrew Furuseth, witnessed the Philadelphia experiment from his ship docked nearby. For decades he was dismissed as delusional, but his detailed letters to astronomer Morris K. Jessup contained information that couldn't have been fabricated: technical specifications, exact timelines, and descriptions of classified equipment. Allende described watching sailors freeze in place during the experiment, not paralyzed, but literally locked between dimensions. They became stuck between here and somewhere else, he wrote. You could see through them, like they were ghosts becoming solid or solid becoming ghosts. Survivor testimonies that emerged decades later confirmed Allende's account. Sailors reported experiencing phase shifting, being able to pass through solid objects, becoming invisible to others, feeling themselves splitting between multiple realities simultaneously. Many described encountering beings during these phase shifts, entities that existed in the dimensional spaces between our reality. Edward Dudgeon, who served on the Eldridge and survived the experiment, broke his silence in 1994. "We went somewhere we weren't supposed to go, opened a door that should have stayed closed. Some of the men never fully came back. Part of them stayed there, in that other place." The Navy's response was immediate and brutal. Survivors were institutionalized in mental hospitals where they received experimental treatments, likely designed to erase their memories or drive them genuinely insane to discredit their testimonies. Medical records show many received electroshock therapy hundreds of times. Some were subjected to early MK-Ultra mind control experiments. Several survivors died under mysterious circumstances within years of the experiment. Official causes ranged from spontaneous combustion to unexplained disintegration. One sailor reportedly vanished while sitting in a bar. Witnesses described him becoming translucent before disappearing completely, as if the phase-shifting effects were permanent. What were these sailors exposed to that terrified the government so completely? What did they bring back with them from that other dimension? Keep watching, because the evidence gets even more disturbing. Classified OMI, Office of Naval Intelligence documents leaked in 2019 revealed the most disturbing truth. The electromagnetic fields generated during the Philadelphia experiment didn't just bend space, they punctured it. They created a permanent weak point in dimensional barriers at the exact coordinates where the experiment occurred. For 8 decades, the Navy has maintained a secret monitoring station near the original Philadelphia Naval Shipyard location. Electromagnetic sensors detect periodic anomalies, brief tears in spacetime that match the signature of the original 1943 event. These tears are increasing in frequency and intensity. Dr. James Coram, physicist who studied declassified Project Rainbow documents, concluded, "The experiment created what we'd now call a quantum entanglement between our dimension and at least one parallel reality. Once that connection was established, it couldn't be fully severed. It's like tearing a hole in fabric. You can sew it closed, but the weak point remains." Reports from Navy personnel stationed near the site describe disturbing phenomena: equipment malfunctioning without cause, temporal distortions where time moves differently, and sightings of phase-shifted figures, translucent humanoid forms that appear and disappear. Some personnel report brief glimpses of the USS Eldridge itself, still burning, still trapped between dimensions. But the most terrifying evidence comes from civilian reports in the Philadelphia area. Since 1943, there have been over 300 documented cases of people experiencing spontaneous phase shifts, becoming temporarily invisible, passing through solid objects, or disappearing for hours or days with no memory of where they went, all within a 5-mile radius of the original experiment site. The pattern is undeniable. The portal opened in 1943 is still active, still pulling people partially into that other dimension, and whatever exists on the other side is trying to push through into ours. I need to thank you tremendously for staying with us through these shocking revelations. Your dedication to uncovering hidden truths is what keeps this channel going. But I promise you, the most explosive evidence is still ahead. What we're about to reveal will change everything you thought you knew about government experiments and the nature of reality itself. Survivor testimonies consistently describe encountering entities during their phase-shifted states, beings that existed in the dimensional space the Eldridge accessed. These weren't hallucinations. Multiple sailors who never met, interviewed separately decades apart, described identical creatures. The entities were described as geometric shadows, beings without fixed form that appeared as shifting patterns of darkness and light. They communicated directly into sailors' minds without sound or language, and they were hostile. Sailors reported feeling these entities attempting to attach to them, to use their bodies as anchors to cross into our dimension. Many who survived the experiment claimed they could still feel these entities attached to them, influencing their thoughts and actions. Classified military psychiatric reports from the 1940s describe sailors exhibiting signs of possession, speaking in unknown languages, demonstrating knowledge they couldn't have acquired, and displaying physical strength impossible for their body size. Exorcisms were performed on at least 17 survivors. Most were unsuccessful. Even more disturbing are reports that some entities successfully crossed through. Several declassified FBI memos from 1944 to 1947 reference unexplained aggressive entities in the Philadelphia area that phase in and out of visible spectrum and cannot be harmed by conventional weapons. One memo, dated March 1945, describes an incident where military police encountered a geometric shadow entity that had killed 3 civilians. The entity reportedly couldn't be contained or destroyed, eventually phasing out and disappearing. The memo concludes, "Recommend immediate closure of Project Rainbow research. We cannot control what we have released." But the research didn't stop. It went deeper underground, classified beyond top secret, and continued for decades under different names, because the military had discovered something revolutionary. These entities possessed technology and knowledge far beyond human comprehension. The real reason the Philadelphia experiment remains classified isn't national security. It's because revealing the truth would force governments to admit they've been conducting interdimensional research for 80 years, have made contact with non-human intelligences, and have absolutely no control over what they've unleashed. Recent whistleblower testimony from former defense contractors reveals that modern stealth technology, quantum computing, and even artificial intelligence development have all been reverse engineered from knowledge obtained through Project Rainbow's dimensional breaches. We've been trading with entities from other dimensions for decades. The technology exists right now to replicate the Philadelphia experiment with precision control. Multiple nations possess it. China, Russia, and the United States have all built advanced electromagnetic field generators capable of dimensional manipulation. They're called quantum radar and electromagnetic pulse weapons in official documents, but insiders know their real purpose. Why haven't they been used? Because every simulation shows the same result. Large-scale dimensional breaches would be catastrophic and irreversible. The portal opened in 1943 was accidental and small. A deliberate breach would tear reality itself apart. But that hasn't stopped the experiments. Underground facilities around the world are conducting smaller, controlled dimensional probes, retrieving technology, making contact with entities, and occasionally losing control, resulting in incidents that are explained away as earthquakes, gas leaks, or mass hallucinations. The Philadelphia experiment wasn't a failed experiment from 80 years ago. It was the beginning of humanity's journey into interdimensional contact, and we're approaching the point where that journey becomes impossible to hide from the public. 80 years after the USS Eldridge vanished into another dimension, we now know the truth. The Philadelphia experiment succeeded. It opened a portal that has never fully closed. It brought entities into our reality that cannot be destroyed or controlled. And it gave governments access to technology from beyond our dimension. The sailors who were fused with metal, who phase-shifted between realities, who were possessed by geometric entities, they weren't tragic accidents. They were the price paid for knowledge that has shaped our world for 8 decades. Every advancement in stealth technology, every leap in quantum physics, every unexplained phenomenon near electromagnetic facilities traces back to that October day in 1943. And the portal is still there, still active, still pulling people into dimensional spaces they were never meant to access. The entities are still trying to cross over, and the experiments are continuing, deeper underground, more controlled, but ultimately just as dangerous. Have you experienced unexplained phase shifts, time distortions, encounters with geometric entities? Drop your experiences in the comments right now. Your testimony could be the missing piece that exposes this ongoing cover-up. If this investigation shocked you, you must subscribe immediately, because channels exposing these truths are being systematically suppressed. Hit that subscribe button now before you lose access to this information. This might be deleted at any moment. Smash the like button to force the algorithm to show this to more people before it gets buried. The government doesn't want this information spreading, which is exactly why you need to share this video urgently with everyone you know. In our next video, we'll expose how CERN's Large Hadron Collider has been secretly attempting to replicate the Philadelphia experiment at massive scale, and what came through when they succeeded. This is information that could save your life. The portal is open, the entities are here, and the final phase of the experiment is about to begin. Subscribe now, because time is running out to learn the truth before it's too late.